Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear student. History of Pakistan, period 2, week 1. First of all, we will discuss about the previous knowledge. Before that, we explained the economic reforms by Z.A. Bhutto, and these economic reforms contents were agricultural reforms, labor reforms, or the industrial reforms, and devaluation of rupee. So today topic is nationalization policy 2nd Jan 1972, that is topic number 6 and page number 7 to 8. You can follow on your books page 7 to 8. So what do you mean by nationalization policy? Definition is bring the private enterprises to state control. So when the private enterprises or the industries, they bring under the control of the government, this is called the nationalization policy. So this nationalization policy have some main headings we are going to discuss. The main heading is aim of policy. First of all, the aim of policy. So on January 2nd, 1972, Z.A. Bhutto wide an audience announced the policy of taking the big industrial units under the state control. So what was the aim of the policy? The policy aimed at protecting the public interest. To protect the interest or the welfare of the people, this policy was launched, or this policy was introduced by Z.A. Bhutto. This was the main aim of the policy. So second heading, what were the main impacts? What were the impacts of this policy, whether they were negative or the positive? Now we will discuss about the impacts of this policy. It produced the negative results. The investment declined in the private sectors, and instead of investing in Pakistan, the capitalists, they began to invest in the foreign countries, and they began to shift their capital to the other countries. Due to the mismanagement of the government employees and the labor unions, the nationalized industries, they suffered the heavy losses and their production reduced considerably. So there was a considerable reduction in the production appears. That was a very negative impact of this nationalization policies, that all the capitalists or the investors, they started to invest in the foreign countries instead of investing in their own countries, and it reduced the production. This was a negative impact of the policy. Let's come towards the next topic number 7, nationalization of insurance. After the nationalizations of the industries, then the Z.A. Bhutto also nationalized the insurance companies. Nationalization of insurance companies. So all the insurance companies, they were nationalized and they were emerged into the State Life Insurance Corporation. So the corporation was further divided into the various groups, and what was the aim? Is with a view to create the competition among them. So they were divided to create the competition among them. So the insurance companies, they were emerged into the State Life Insurance Corporation and further divided into the different groups or the branches. Topic 8, nationalization of banks on 1st January 1974. So on 1st January 1974, through another audience, all the banks, they were nationalized and given under the control of the state bank. You can give it the name of the heading, and the main headings for the nationalization of bank is the implementation. The data come under the heading of implementation, that the January 1974, on 1st January 1974, all the banks, they were nationalized and given under the control of the State Bank of Pakistan. The government have effective control over the flow of capital. Aim was to have the control over the flow of capital, but these were the implementation, And the next main heading is impacts. What were the impacts of these implementation or these nationalization of banks? The impacts were: performance of the banks declined due to the non-cooperative activities of the unions of the bank employees. So the employees, they involved in the union activity, and thus the performance of the banks declined. These were the negative impacts of the nationalization of banks. So nationalization policy include the nationalization of industry, nationalization of insurance companies, and third is the nationalization of the banks. Topic 9. Next topic: educational reforms in 15th March 1972. So Zulfikar Ali Bhutto announced his educational policy on 15th March 1972. This was the educational policy, and it was also announced and introduced by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. What are the main headings of this policy? First of all, the free education. Beginning from 1st October 1972 and 1st October 1974, the education shall be provided free of the cost up to level A to 10 respectively. Up to level A to 10, the education will be provided free. It comes under the heading free education. Second heading for the educational reform: nationalization of the private institutes. So the government decided that all the private schools and the colleges, they were nationalized. It was declared that no appointment shall be made in these institutes unless approved by the government. So all these private schools and the colleges, they were under the control of state. That is called the nationalization of the private institutes. Third, educational reform: provision of stipends. For the welfare of the students, stipends and the interest-free loans, they were provided to the students. These were the educational reforms and their main points. So comes towards the next topic, number 10. Topic number 10: overall impacts of Bhutto government reforms. Overall impacts. We also discuss or explain the individual impacts on the industries, on the insurance companies, on the banks, and on the standard of education. Now we will discuss them overall impacts of these reforms or the nationalization policy. So the main headings: negative impacts on industries. What negative impacts were there of the nationalization policy on the industries? So when Z.A. Bhutto nationalized all the enterprises or the industry, so due to the industrial nationalization of the industry units, the production declined because the laborers gave up commitments in their jobs and involved in the unionist activities, and as a result the industrialists, they met the losses and started shutting down the factories. So all these factors affected the Pakistan's foreign trade because the low production caused a drop in our exports. So it badly affected the trade and the export of the country, and as you know, the export increase in the export just increase the economy of the country because it brings the foreign exchange, and when there is decline in the export, then the economy of the country badly affected. So the industrialization nationalization of the industries breed very negative impacts. Then the negative impacts on the standard of educational reforms or also breed the negative impacts on the standard of the education. When all the private institutes, they were nationalized, then due to the lack of the discipline in these institutes, the students got involved in the practical politics, which badly affected the educational environment or the standard of education. So these were the negative impacts of the nationalization policy, especially for the industries and on the standard of education. So these were the main topics. The main topic was nationalization policy, nationalization of industries, nationalization of insurance company, nationalization of banks, and then the educational reforms. So you notice that the nationalization policy totally or overall impacts, they were negative. Let's come towards your evaluation, and once again you can only attempt your evaluation when you have listened carefully and you tally the points with the topics given in your books. The first question of the evaluation: check your knowledge whether you can answer or not. What was the aim of nationalization policy? Do you know what was the main aim of the nationalization policy? The main aim of the nationalization policy for the welfare and the interest of the people. Second, write two negative results of the policy on the industry. Can you tell me two negative results of the policy on the industry? The first was that the industries began to shut down, and the second one that it really declined the production and badly affect the export of the country. Third question: why standard of education suffered due to the educational reforms? Why standard of education suffered? Because when all the private institutes, the colleges and the schools, they were nationalized, they were given under the state control, and the lack of the management and discipline, the students they involved in the politics, and it badly affect the standard of education. Question number 4: when did Z.A. Bhutto announce the educational policy? So on 15th March 1972, Z.A. Bhutto announced the educational policy. Question 5: why did the production of industries decline? Why did the production of industries decline? The production of the industries decline because the most of the investors, they use their capitals to be invest outside of the countries, and the industries imply they involve in the unionist activities. So this decline the production of the industries and affect the export of country. After the evaluations comes to your assignments. It's compulsory that you should attempt these assignments on your notebooks and the registers and check your knowledge. Also enhance your writing speeds and broaden your vision. The first one is detailed note about nationalization policy of Z.A. Bhutto. So the answer will be the nationalization policy. First of all, nationalization policies of the industries with the main headings which have been discussed in the above lines. Then nationalization of insurance company, nationalization of banks, and educational reforms. Then second question, comprehensive note about the educational reforms. Educational reforms, the main points and the impacts which we have discussed recently in the above lines will be the answer. Question 3, overall impacts of Bhutto's government. Overall impacts we have discussed recently in the above lines. What were the overall impacts on industries and education especially? So you will write the answer, relevant data. Then next is the objective exercises. Relevant objective exercises to the topics are on the pages 22 and 23, included the question number 1 and 2. So you will attempt the relevant objective exercises as well, the fill in the blanks and the optional blanks. So dear students, if you find any difficulty to complete your assignments, and if there is any point that is not clear to you, you can comment. Thank you and Allah Hafiz.